Hello guys and welcome to a new episode of Decentra Talks. Today I have with me Robert. Robert is an engineer and you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Robert. I'm a freedom maximalist and a developer.
I wanted to have you on today because I've heard you talk a lot about Bitcoin and about tech, and I really respect your opinions and I think that they should be shared. I'd like to discuss Bitcoin with you. I'd like to discuss what you're building, but maybe we could start off with what you've been developing.
Yeah, so I'm working on a framework for rapidly building peer-to-peer apps that are fully secure and with high connectivity. So today, building a peer-to-peer app is pretty difficult because you have to deal with all the networking stuff and NATs and things like that. So just to get the first results, you would probably need to spend several months working on.
It's okay. We have a cat with us today as well as a guest. You'll be hearing him a lot. So you said that you are building a peer-to-peer framework for building apps, and that at the moment it is a difficult thing to do for most people.
Yeah, it's very time-consuming. Just managing connection with peers, timeouts, connectivity. It's just the boilerplate stuff for peer-to-peer. I wanted to simplify it, and my goal is to let you build your first fully functional peer-to-peer app within a few hours, maybe a day.
So what inspired this process? Because it seems like it's a difficult thing to tackle, especially since you're dealing with a lot of networking, and that's a level that most developers are kind of abstracted away from. They don't have to deal with it anymore, but building something like this, you seem to have to get deep into the nitty-gritty with networking. So what inspired you initially to start building this application?
Well, actually, Bitcoin, I would say. Even though that's there is no blockchain in the project, it's just pure peer-to-peer platform. But the level of censorship resistance, the way it's been designed, Bitcoin has been designed to be unstoppable. That was very inspiring, and I was kind of looking at YouTube, taking down the politically incorrect stuff, people on Twitter getting banned for not following the narrative, just generally attacking free speech. And I was thinking a lot on how to solve that. And at first I wanted to build some kind of platform for media sharing, but over time the idea has evolved so that to the point where I just want to build a bare minimum for other developers to be able to build any kind of unstoppable peer-to-peer app on top of it, without having any opinion on what the app should be. So
It's really interesting that you decided to take the approach of building the framework and letting other people do the job versus going in and making your application or what you want to see yourself. I think that works out better, and this is a formula that has proven to be successful with applications and programs like Ethereum or programming languages or programming frameworks. So I'm super into this, and I am happy to see how it evolves into the future and what your progress has been with it. For those who don't necessarily know what a peer-to-peer application would be, could you take some time to maybe explain that?
Sure. Peer-to-peer just means that machines connect to each other directly and exchange data directly instead of going through some intermediaries like Google servers, Amazon, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That means that as long as you can connect to the other person, you retain full privacy of what you're doing, why you're doing, and nobody can really stop you from doing that. you don't leave your data on any external servers. You retain full autonomy over what you're doing with other peers.
So right now in this day and age, everything we do online does go through different companies like Google or Facebook or YouTube. You need to post this information somewhere, and it's on somebody else's server, which means they have access to it. They can both view it, alter it, delete it, or do anything they want with your information. This causes this condensation of power in these massive corporations, and it gives them the ability to control our speech, what people get to see, what kind of educational information is out there. Whether we've seen this in COVID, and not that I am on any side, I do understand both sides of the argument, but taking down individuals who are trying to discuss something like COVID-19, it is not necessarily the right move. And we've seen these corporations and companies abuse this power more and more, especially the last couple of years. So in a peer-to-peer framework, you said that you get to own your data, and you get to have private conversations as long as, of course, the other party is in agreement. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, so you and the other party is the only party that you need to trust. There is, and like, as you said, that takes away a lot of power from the big corporations. But there's also not just that, they can censor you. The problem is also like big data. Like by having access to personal information of millions of people, like that data on a societal scale gives you the tools to manipulate crowds, and like you just know how to effectively push a narrative. So it's like it's very dangerous for political reasons, and I think that like at least some of the large corporations have become way too politicized. Especially social media, where speech happens. So that's like a very vulnerable place to. So peer-to-peer can then definitely help with that. Although there is, I think there is room for centralized services too. It's just that we should have both private and not so private ways of communicating, and choose the right tool for whatever you're doing.
When I think of the way we communicate right now, and the kind of issues that we're facing in our current society, especially like we are in the West at the moment, and we are very privileged in the sense that our governments have not yet infiltrated every little corporation.
Right.
But if you go to places in Africa and Asia, I have seen this with my own eyes. The governments break deals with Facebook, and they gain access to all the information. They're able to turn off your ability to communicate at any time, and they would do this around the high school final exams. They would just shut off the communication apps. You can't discuss anything because they don't want people to cheat. And this power is, it could be scary, especially if you are somewhere where you have less rights. But where this leads me to is I want to understand, what are the limitations that you have to work with to make a peer-to-peer application?
Limitations. Well, for sure, the biggest limitation, I guess, is connectivity. So because there is no like a third-party server that's always online 24/7 with great connection that's ready to receive your emails or whatever, you have to kind of take care of that yourself. So I don't know, like for now, most people own a smartphone, right? So obviously you're going to be able to use that as your device, but you might, want to have like a Raspberry Pi at home that takes care of all the availability and maybe some larger data transfer, things like that. So yeah, there are definitely limitations there, and you're also limited by your connection at your home. But those limitations can be worked around with good design for particular apps. For example, if you have a lot of followers and you want to share a photo with, say, 1 million people, you might want to encrypt the image, put it in an external server, pay for hosting it anonymously, and then just send your followers, the link and the key to decrypt the file. And because of things like Bitcoin, where you can you can pay anonymously, you can retain full anonymity to the third party, so that they cannot discriminate against you for any reason. So there are ways that there are some tools that we can use to get around those limitations, but it's definitely still gonna require some more work. Hopefully, within the framework at some point there are gonna be like tools like that included, so it's gonna be even easier. But yeah, for now, there are definitely
some issues that really need to be hashed out.
Yeah,
What I'm hearing
especially
though,
like regarding resources, like hosting resources, computing power maybe.
I think one limitation that I'm hearing in this conversation is the technical knowledge that you need to be able to use these sorts of systems. They require someone who is a little bit more sophisticated in how they use their devices. And since they haven't had as much time to develop and get polished, they have a lack in user experience. And this is something I feel people complain about a lot, even in crypto, which is like, yeah, you have these peer-to-peer networks, you're able to do a lot more than you would with just PayPal, but it's a lot more difficult to understand and manage, and it's harder to bring new people in.
Right, so I think that user experience is not a problem that's is unsolvable. I think it's just the immaturity of the industry, and not something that just cannot be done. There's really no reason to have a very smooth experience where your software on your phone, whenever it detects like a Raspberry Pi, which can be still like a prepackaged product, it's not, you have to set it up yourself. Whenever it detects like your permanent box at your home, a router or whatever, it can just ask you if you want to use it as a gateway for the heavy stuff. And really the setup could be as easy as picking some very basic preferences for the user and still having like good integration and experience. I don't think user experience is really a limiting factor here.
I think I tend to disagree because at least in the work that I do, which is very user facing, it is really hard to get anybody to use your application or stick with it if you have bad user experience. And not that your work has to have a good user experience. It just feels like to me decentralized networks, peer-to-peer networks are a lot more difficult to get right with UX. And I hope that in the future I can help on that side. That's why I work in the front end. So right now, where is the progress of what you've built in peer-to-peer networks as a whole?
Well, I'm getting ready to release like a, let's say, beta version or maybe alpha. It's kind of at the point where I'm starting to feel comfortable, building some first smaller apps on top of it.
I think in the past we've discussed like building applications on top of your project and your work, and I thought a lot about use cases where people could have a sort of decentralized identity that multiple people can access, and they could just go on that. Two people can open a connection. One computer has all the information necessary to complete work, like build products or write code, and then that person can access that machine with that information do their work and then leave it be, and then their personal machines are not affected by what they just did. And this seems to me like something that could be done, and it is a great improvement, I believe, because there's a lot of time wasted in development, specifically where you have to install packages and figure out why something doesn't work on this machine and why something works on that machine. This is an issue that, or on a certain browser, but if you have everything that you need for work pre-configured on a device, and then you open that network up so that people can connect to it, do their work, and leave, it seems like a good use case for me. I guess my question would be, what are some general use cases that you see being used with peer-to-peer apps?
Oh, well, in theory you could build anything on top of it, but like I said, I think the biggest problem now is the moderation problem for social media, and there's like no neutral platform that would not be susceptible to either business pressure or by advertisers threatening to pull out, or governments pressurizing some social media platforms that recently, and so I think that's like the most important one, but other than that, I'm not really sure.
So it seems like you're really focused on the social media aspect.
Well, yeah, social media and communication in general.
Why is this a topic that you are so passionate about? I know you told me you've seen on the internet a lot of these injustices.
Right. Yeah, I just think that the attack on free speech is the biggest threat to basic human freedom. You can see what's happening with WeChat and what happens when you no longer have the ability to freely express yourself. And I just hate to see that happen, all over the world.
Something that I think about a lot is when people get banned off of Twitter, just as an example, other social media platforms are also very much guilty of this, but when people get banned off of Twitter or a certain opinion gets banned, it's not like it has been deleted off the face of the earth. These people still want to connect with people, they still want to be heard, and they still want to grow, which is why they're speaking. But what ends up happening is they all go to a certain place by themselves and they create this echo chamber, which could breed a lot of issues. Not to point any fingers at anybody, but it is an issue on all sides.
Yeah.
So why is it that we can't listen to allow people to just talk and figure out ways around that? There was a social media platform that's being built. It was forked off of Mastodon. Have you heard of it? It was built by a guy named Daryl Davis, I believe, who he's made it his career to talk to extremists and bring them back to normal. His solution to moderation and to banning people is that on his social media platform, instead of hiring moderators, they hire therapists. And when people get too problematic, they send them into those comments and those chats. And in an open platform, they discuss things with them. And I think that would have a great success. But unfortunately, I don't think many people would use it.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, but the practicality of it, has to be tested.
It does have to be tested. I do think that the right people are behind it and they could make progress with it.
Sure, but the question is, whether that's what's actually needed in the market, and is that something that would bring any noticeable results.
I don't think it would be beneficial, but it would be it would mitigate some of the harms that happen from social media.
Well, yeah, hopefully, but again, I don't know. It might turn out that people just hate opening up to strangers online. I don't know.
They probably do.
Yeah, and then maybe the thing falls apart, something like that. But that's why someone needs to build it and check it, because it's really difficult to predict.
What would an ideal social media platform or communications tool look like to you?
Well, now we're getting to a bit more difficult problem of what is social media.
I think it's a place where people are supposed to communicate.
Yes, but what I mean is, or rather, what do social media platforms do, and to facilitate that? And the answer is that they do actually several things. They have they have your identity, right? They provide you with an identity within their platform. They do content distribution for you, and they also help you typically discover content. So suggest people to follow or channels to subscribe, whatever. And now basically the content discovery part is very strictly about moderation. It's that's where actually the real problem now happens. It's not really okay. We'll get there. I don't really. Moderation is only a problem because it's bundled together with everything else today. The way I imagine it is that you should own your identity, you should own your content, and be able to talk to other people. But the problem of content discovery, which is tied to moderation, can be done by third parties. So, like in a completely decentralized system, it would be very difficult to do something like the Twitter timeline, the global timeline for tweets, or even the search for tweets. It's how do you search millions of devices and their content in a decentralized network. That's really not easy to solve. So the best way to do it is build indexes, which is basically what Google does for search, and they don't own the website. They don't own. They only own the index and let you search that. So it would be ideally, to get to the point, I would split social media into the part where you own your identity and your content, and only subscribe to moderated groups in order to discover content that that's in line with your own content policy, or the view on what content should be allowed, should not be allowed. And
do you see any value in pushing content, or these discovery features the way they are right now? Do you see value in them? Is there something that needs to be saved, or is it mostly just bad? Because in my opinion, I feel like, and I would say this about the written social media platforms more than the video platforms, I think it's pretty much just bad, because most of the time I only ever see people that I don't want to see,
right,
and things that I don't want to hear.
I would agree with that. And what I kind of dislike about Twitter is that whenever I go to replies of a tweet, I have to go through everything, and the quality of tweets, the average quality is pretty damn low. So you really have to, kind of at least glance through all the crappy comments, which still, your brain still registers, and it's not a pleasant thing to do anyways, even if you kind of, try to ignore it and just look for the valuable stuff. So in fully decentralized networks, obviously, it's not gonna be, you're not gonna have that probably. You're gonna most likely see content that's somewhere within your social circle or close to it, I would say. Which actually, well, unless you have subscribe to some aggregator which does what the content discovery part that I talked about, but in general, as a default, and as just add your friends or people that you've met in the real world or were introduced to by people you trust, you would build that network and see predominantly content from that network.
I think a good example here would be Discord versus Twitter, at least for me. Discord, like you said, it is a group of people that are within my social circle, and the opinions and things that I see are confined to that social circle. There isn't anything that's being pushed on me because I have to manually add everything in myself. And if I join a community, then I've accepted to join community with all these different people, not just with one person. So, and for me, Discord is a lot more useful. It's a lot more meaningful and important in my life. I use it for work. I use it for talking to people, for keeping up with the people that I care about. And Twitter, whenever I visit Twitter, I feel like and not just Twitter, by the way, Facebook, Reddit, they try to elicit the content that's being pushed to me tries to elicit a response.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things go sour, because this promotes hateful content, angry content that's built on emotions.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is the result of the business model based on ads. Because the fact that they're trying to elicit responses related to click-through ratios and ads and engagement, time spent on site and things like that. And I think that's like the business model of advertising really is the source of the very low quality of social media today.
What's very ironic about it is that advertisers, they both won't advertise on a lot of different types of content that people find useful. I like tech stuff, and a lot of tech stuff on YouTube is not monetized. So the creators that I like to listen to and I like to watch, I can't support them through this system. And at the same time, the content that's being pushed to me, which I find very meaningless, content about drama, which is always what gets to the top of the discovery list, or bad news, bad events, is constantly being advertised and pushed down my throat, and it doesn't seem like they don't have the formula right, and I always question whether or not this is the way we should be monetizing things, but it's also difficult because how else would you monetize and provide for the people on your platform?
Right. So Elon is trying to to go the paid version way now. We'll see how it goes. I don't think anybody has done that so far in any mainstream media, social media platforms. Maybe there were some smaller paid ones, but it's going to be interesting to see if such centralized platform, can sustain itself from paid memberships and kind of disconnect from the advertising model. And obviously, in decentralized networks, you kind of pay for the resources that you use just by having your own devices, using your own power. So you kind of take this cost on yourself, but it's kind of hidden too in things that you use anyway. So
I think the Elon Musk Twitter example, it's a good example. I feel like they've done a lot of things wrong on Twitter now, and even before he took control of it. But it's really important for us to figure out how to shift the way we support the things that we use. Because a small example of this would be YouTube AdSense. If you watch a YouTube video, your view counts as 1/1000th of a cent. So you could watch a creator for weeks, if not months, if not years, without actually contributing any meaningful amount to them. And then that $8 that you would pay to get Twitter Blue or to get YouTube Premium for $15, that money contributes in a much more meaningful way to the people that you like to listen to and watch and the things that you like to use. It directly supports what you want. So in a perfect world, you would top up your account with $10, and then you can watch a lot of videos and just give 1 cent per video. That's 10 times more than you would ever have done with watching ads.
Right. So actually, YouTube gives you the super chats, donations, subscriptions, whatever. But I guess it's kind of limited to you need to cross a certain threshold to have
Yeah.
access to it, right? So it's so it's kind of not great for smaller creators, or so like that would
Also,
be
the
great,
percentages they take,
Yeah.
if you haven't seen before, it's like 50%. They take upfront, and then
That's a lot.
they're also, so most of these platforms, they make you buy either gifts or tokens, some way to pay, because they don't want you to pay directly. And what ends up happening is the person that's trying to pay you as a creator first has to pay a $5 markup over whatever. Like let's say they want to give you $50, so they need to buy this token or this sticker or whatever for $5 more. And then when you get the sticker yourself, which is usually worth, like, let's say $50, you only get $25 out of it at the end of the day. And this is assuming you haven't had any content strikes, or there's a lot of there's a lot of like stealing. I feel like that happens in these payment systems. So I'm a big proponent of using crypto as a way to take
for sure.
take like donations or get paid. And I think that this movement in Web3 to start monetizing things through your wallet, I think, is very meaningful, and it will actually contribute to what you like to see and do.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, direct payments to the creators are way better, and I hope we go that way.
I hope we go that way too. So I initially met you through a crypto group that I started. It may not be like immediately seen as a crypto group, but that's the ultimate goal of it. And you are very passionate about Bitcoin. I come from the Ethereum world and layer 2s, so that's like where I spend the majority of my time. I've used crypto as a payment system, Bitcoin specifically, and recently I've been saving in Bitcoin, and I think that it could be a good decision for the future. So you have motivated me to actually read more and actually go through the whole white paper. What made you so passionate about Bitcoin?
Well, yeah, that's been a journey. It's like at first I was just kind of interested in technology. Just the fact that there was the promise of digital scarcity. I was very curious because that seemed impossible at the time. So that's like that would like just open the door for me. But later, I got into things like Austrian economics, freedom topics, libertarianism, things like that. And it just like felt right ideologically, and it's after a few years, I'm pretty much sold on the idea, and I think that's the way forward for humanity.
When was the first time you ever bought or used Bitcoin?
The first time I installed Bitcoin software and tried to make a transaction was around 2011, but sadly I dismissed at the time because it was still pretty wonky. It didn't like work for me at all. It took like a week to confirm a transaction in a pretty empty blockchain, I would say. I don't even know what happened, but I just had a really bad experience, and I thought that's interesting, but it's not going to work. And then in 2013, there was this huge bubble from $15 to almost 300, and then it crashed back to like 70 or 80 bucks. And there was a lot of noise. Well, a lot is very subjective, but for the times there was a lot of noise around that again, and I looked into it again. And I bought some Bitcoin on Mt. Gox and withdrew it on time before the huge collapse. I was able to pay with it and for cupcakes in San Francisco, and that like completely changed my mind. I was like, okay, so this has matured now. It actually works. I've used it for something in the real world. Yeah, and I gotta learn more about it, right? So that was like the breakthrough moment, like the first time I actually used Bitcoin.
I was told about Bitcoin for the first time. Well, I've read about it on the internet before then, but 2016 was when I sat down with people who were actually mining Bitcoin. That was their full-time thing, and they tried to get me into it as well. I tried to look into it. I think it was like I chose Litecoin, and then I regret this, but it's fine. I learned.
It's pretty much
I
the
learned a
same
lot.
technology.
It is pretty much. I didn't know at the time. It was cheaper to buy, so I thought, oh well,
Right.
it's easier for me to get more of it than to get Bitcoin. Well,
And it's faster, right?
yeah. But after that, I started a business, online business, and it was a great payment method. So a lot of people would come up to me. We would try to do PayPal, but they'd be in Asia. They don't have PayPal. Or we tried to do Cash App. They're in Canada. They don't have Cash App. So Bitcoin always ended up being this fallback that I could use with a lot of different people. And even if somebody wasn't too technologically advanced, they could still download a wallet at the time, 2017, 2018,
Yeah.
and they could make a payment, and it worked. It was pretty flawed in that sometimes transactions would take too long to validate. Also, the fact that the price goes up and down, whether that's a feature or a bug, is it's up for discussion. But that was when I started to look at it as like, this is a real contender to the financial system, especially the fact that anybody from anywhere can access it. Because if you would believe it, it's really hard to get money from people outside of your continent. Very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, there is something, about the payment use case. Probably because it's like so, tangible, like everyday experience. But yeah, like in the beginning, like I also like viewed it as very much as a payment mechanism. I didn't understand the asset itself. But I guess like that was just like the community in general did not, understand the things that we understand now. That pretty much the whole community has learned a lot about economics, I would say, because there was no really good explanation like from the economics perspective, of Bitcoin back then. There were like Austrian economists that kind of made that connection to gold, but there was no talk about like store of value versus method of payment versus unit of account. Like there was no such awareness. Yeah.
At least it works well for all of those different things that you just discussed.
I would argue with that.
If we think about gold,
no, I mean like in the future, but like now, it's a really not really great unit of account because of it's the fluctuations in exchange rate. It's not really the best method of payment. I mean, it's getting there. Like we have Lightning, which is like growing, and the infrastructure is getting better, but it's still not perfect.
if you settle immediately on both sides, this is where I see it being useful. It's a method of money transportation more than it is a method of payment, because at the end of the day, most people are going to get the Bitcoin that they were paid and they're going to go and sell it for fiat. That's how it worked, at least in my business. That's how most of the people that I've interfaced with do it.
Exactly.
So it's a good way to transfer money. And an example that I really liked, I had another guest on here whose grandparents had left Europe in World War II, and they had a significant amount of gold and physical assets that they just couldn't take with them.
Yeah.
So all of the family wealth that has been passed down for generations was lost, and it was lost to people who didn't use it in a nice way. Let's we'll say the least. So, in that point of time, it would be great if you could just get on a plane or get on a boat. All you need is the words in your head, and then when you get on the other side, you could tap in and you can take everything you need out, and you can start your new life. not from zero, but from maintaining at least some of what your family had passed down to you. I see these types of use cases is where I think Bitcoin shines, because even if there is a price fluctuation, it doesn't matter. In emergency situations, having only 40% is better than having nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
from your experience, where do you see Bitcoin shining well? What has it taught you about economics?
Well, it taught me that money is just an asset that with just the most saleable asset, like saving would say. Yeah, it taught me about scarcity, which is surprisingly difficult to deeply understand.
Let's touch on scarcity for a bit. What is it about scarcity that makes this so appealing or so effective economically? Because when people think about scarcity, they think like, oh, if it's something that I can't get a hold of, what's the point, right? If I can't eventually have this. And if there is really only 21 million and 21 million all have their one, they don't share it with anybody. How is that useful?
Would you value something that's that you can have at any time in any amount? That's scarcity gives value to things, right? Because if you have, nobody's gonna pay for air, right? Because it's everywhere, it's for free. There's a lot of it, enough for everyone. So without scarcity, you couldn't really assign any value to things. It's really difficult to have things like property rights without scarcity, because property rights are pretty much the answer to scarcity of things. Like, how do we assign ownership to things that are limited and not there isn't enough of them for everyone to have exactly how much they want. Scarcity is pretty important in terms of store of value use case, I would say primarily. And that's why the fiat thing has its biggest problem, that they can decrease scarcity of your savings at any time, thus making it less valuable.
I see. So what I'm hearing is that scarcity helps you put a value on something. Scarcity helps you create something that can be used as a method of payment as well, because if you have something that's you have as much of it as you want, it wouldn't work as a way to either store or transfer. Nobody wants it. It's already available.
Exactly.
And in a technical landscape that's constantly changing and evolving, where there's new products coming out all the time, new tokens, new financial systems and tools, do you think Bitcoin is going to last? Will it stay here for a while? And if so, why will it still be here if new things that are better or more effective come out in the future?
So how do you score this? What does it mean better? How do you quantify how good something is?
I would say, instead of better than how many people are able to use it effectively and in a positive way.
For me, Bitcoin is the solution to money, and to quantify whether something's better as money, you need some way of measuring it. The huge level of decentralization, the scarcity, perfect scarcity of it, the fixed supply, and uncensorability. It's hard to imagine something that would do this significantly better, enough so that to overcome the network effect of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a track record, because something that there is a test of time, right? It's easy to trust Bitcoin now, that's been around for like what 14 years almost, and yeah, because it's been used to transfer like probably now like trillions of dollars of value, right? So I can't really imagine anything, you know, that in the near future at least, that would do money so much better that it would be worth, you know, changing from Bitcoin.
When I think of like crypto and what is going to get adoption in the future, the first thing that comes to mind is stablecoins. And I'm aware that stablecoins come with all the flaws of fiat because they're
Right.
directly modeled after fiat. They do improve
They're
transferability.
fiat on steroids.
They are fiat on steroids. But that's where I see most people going, and that's the direction I see like most governments taking as well. And
Yeah.
I think how does Bitcoin keep its value? Because if people don't want it, it's not going to keep its value.
Well, so stable coins are, yeah, like it's a trade-off, right? Because like Bitcoin lets you retain, like not get diluted in the monetary supply, but the cost of it is short to mid-term volatility, because I think that in the long-term volatility will go down significantly. Whereas, you know, stable coins, being basically fiat, give you short to mid-term stability, but at the cost of, you know, being slowly diluted away over time. And so it's like it's two very different things. And obviously, like most people they want to retain stability. They need to, you know, make sure that they're going to be able to pay their bills next month. So yeah, so I think like it's going to be an interesting transitory period where like stablecoins will have a lot of, well, they're going to make the financial system, the current financial system, better. Like, you know.
And they already do, honestly.
Exactly.
They
Like
improve
Swift
things.
now still takes like 3 days to get money to US, and it cost me like $15. With stable coins, it's obviously like way faster and way cheaper.
And you can send money for less than a cent to anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I remember the days because my family lives all over the world, and in the past, like when I was first getting started, if somebody sent me like a couple $100 for, I don't know, for support or for my birthday, they would do it through Western Union, and I would go to pick it up, and I would have a 33% reduction in my total amount every time. Like it was 25 to 33%. Now it's dropped down significantly, and I think the reason for that is because now they have competition.
Right.
They have to actually compete. But the amount that was being chunked off of what I ultimately get, and not just me, but like literally billions of people from less well, you know, equipped countries are getting significantly less because of these systems. So it's really good to see what stablecoins have been doing, and at the moment it works for me. It works for a lot of people, and it's reliable, it's stable. And I think that the governments are also moving into instead of like letting other stablecoins pop up, they're trying to beat them at the race. I heard that China has done it with their yuan. They now have a digital yuan. The United States is looking into this, and there's also countries in Europe who are considering it.
Yeah.
Do you see us being far off from a world where instead of using Swift, we simply just use crypto?
Oh, probably it's gonna take longer than I'd like. I don't know. It's really difficult to give a time target for that. But I think it's definitely gonna be like a decade at least before we get like really like worldwide adoption. Yeah, and it's gonna be a long fight. I don't know, like CBDCs are kind of scary, and they're coming at least in some countries. I hope that the U.S. actually adopts stable coins, or like puts in a framework for stablecoins so that there can be like privately or like by some like commercial banks issued stablecoins that and only banks have the digital dollar or whatever, because that would at least still retain that the layer of commercial banks between the Fed and people, which it's why we still have some freedom in the current financial system, because like if there were no intermediaries, then it would be all just directly to the government. It's not great. Yeah, so CBDCs are pretty scary because they would like centralize power over your money to even smaller group of people, even more powerful group of people, and probably motivated by other things, not just providing you with financial services. But CBDCs are like completely different story than stablecoins, right?
I think we need to follow up with the CBDCs. Is that what was it? What did you say?
Central bank digital currency.
Central bank digital currency. Okay, that's an acronym I haven't heard before. I think we need to follow up on that. But before we get there, I have a question about. So you have lived in Poland. You have lived in the United States. When I go out in Poland right now in Warsaw, almost every 2 blocks there is a specific ATM just for crypto, or like a store that basically acts as an exchange for people to go, and they can either upload their Bitcoin or like withdraw money, and it's not just for Bitcoin. This is not the case in most countries. This is not the case in the United States. It's like way harder to find, except maybe in New York. Why did Poland have such like a liberal outlook on cryptocurrency, and why is it still such a supported business, I suppose?
I'm not sure if it's supported. It's just more. I would say it's more ignored. Like, I don't think that our government cares that much about crypto, it's not a priority for them. There are some basic rules. Obviously, they had to lay out rules for how to pay taxes on crypto gains. But other than that, there really isn't much going on in the government in terms of crypto. So
there is Golem. Have you heard of Golem?
Yeah.
It's a decentralized blockchain network for sharing CPU power, and I think that that's directly backed by the Polish government. I might be wrong here.
From like one of the programs to fund innovation or whatever, but those are typically not very like high level decisions. It's like just some European Union funds or whatever, and they're
so they're trying to support new businesses. I see. It's just refreshing to see that. I like the fact that that's available.
Yeah,
honestly.
like for some reason in Poland, we've had fairly cash tolerant government. I don't know really why, but like up until recently, our limit for transactions with no KYC was 15,000 euros, which is like one of the highest in Europe. Now it's lowered to 1,000, but still you can do 15 transactions per day.
That's so funny.
Yeah, in theory it's like if they're connected, if the other party suspects that they're connected, they still have to do KYC, but obviously, like what's a connected transaction is again very subjective. So yeah, I've seen people like camping by the Bitcoin ATM, and like doing just several transactions in a row. I don't know why, but it's pretty. I'm happy that that's the case in Poland now.
One of my favorite ATMs here is there's this one under where you're crossing between
Shitcoins Club.
Shitcoins Club, because they have like a very nice security system where they have like 2 locked doors, and you go through the first, you go through the second. Nobody can come in after you. Nobody can like look at what you're doing. You have your space.
On the other hand, it attracts attention. Like when he goes through those gates, like people are looking at you. Yeah, it's funny.
It does attract attention. I could see how that could be a problem. Let's go back to central bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
So, what would that mean to have like a central bank digital currency that would be basically the dominant crypto or financial product? What is the problem with that?
Well, so like CBDCs is a concept, so like how they implement it is yet to be seen. But like when things go really wrong, you would get like what China is proposing. So basically like programmable money, where the government can tell you that, hey, here you have you can spend this money only here, here, and here, or you have to spend it until a certain date and then it expires. Something that isn't possible today because of cash, and would be possible with purely digital, centrally controlled money. Yeah, and that's the biggest danger, because that takes away even more freedom from people, centralizes power, and yeah, that's a very dangerous game.
Now that I think of it, that is pretty scary. Like we currently do have programmable money on the Ethereum network. Ethereum itself is programmable. There was a product or program, Tornado Cash, where you could put money on one side, take it from the other side without it being traced back to any of your other wallets. Whether that's useful or criminal, that's not the point, but anybody that held Ethereum or any other token that went through Tornado Cash was put on a blacklist, and now those tokens are basically like unusable. So if you stored your money in USDC, maybe you wanted to hide it from your abusive partner, let's say, or like there are real use cases for why you'd want something like that, but they are just able to pull the switch, essentially.
Yeah, the scary thing is that the developer of Tornado Cash is still in prison. It's been several months now, and there are no charges against him. He's just being held like arbitrarily. I don't know. It's and now they extended that just like today, I think, by another 3 months.
Yeah, they're torturing him for building software.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
If we go back to the beginning of our conversation where I told you about what I would see peer-to-peer, what a good peer-to-peer application for me would be, is you have a specialized work computer, and you can open that up to a single peer that goes and works on it, and then at the end of the day, it's just the work that's being done instead of the person that's doing something, right? So you have this end computer which is only made for one specific thing, which is work. It doesn't get mixed in with anything else. The person that's actually doing the work is inconsequential, as anybody could replace them. It's just about having that one thing that you could do work from. I see that being a useful thing to come in the future, because recently in crypto, you see that they're just able to like shut you down, take you to prison, delete your code from GitHub, take all your money, regardless of whether you did something wrong or not, without even having a trial. It scares me. So decentralization is important, and we do need more applications that cater to these kinds of things.
Yeah, everything like that's like the fundamental speech. That's necessary for our society to reach any consensus on any issue that's significant to a large part of the population, and having like gatekeepers who decide what can be said and cannot be said, like it breaks like the whole way that we can have a peaceful society. It's so I think it's like incredibly important to retain that freedom of expression, at least on the basic level where we reach like the social consensus, because like obviously you can still have centralized platforms for I don't know, even if it's just for your work, you might only talk about work stuff, so I don't see anything wrong with things that you say over your work account being logged or whatever. It's not very private because that's what you do for someone. That's fine. But like just for basic human communication, we should have the most neutral, most like it should basically be the equivalent of just town square where everybody gets an equal chance to speak and
Some applications do this right. One application that comes to mind, which is a communications tool, I wouldn't say it's a social media platform, is Signal.
Yeah.
Signal has an algorithm that helps keep your data encrypted unless
Right.
you have the physical device that you created the key with.
Yeah.
And this bypasses a lot of the things that we've been talking about. It keeps your information, like I use that for my family and for my friends, because those are conversations that I want to keep, secret and private. Those are things that I don't want anybody to be reading. So I really like Signal, and
Yeah, me too. That's my preferred messenger now.
Can you give me like a couple of platforms that take these fundamentals, let's say, seriously? We talked about Bitcoin. We talked about Signal. Does anything else come to mind?
Well, Signal actually is a centralized platform, and I think they've done a great job because it's as private as you can be, while still having like a central servers for distribution, and they'll still have that phone number verification, which is it's a trade-off again because if you don't it's the easiest way to have accounts without disclosing too much information and not being open to spam accounts. Like you want to somehow verify the user since you retain no information about the user. So we want to prevent someone creating 1 million accounts and just using that for spam or something. So I understand why they're using phone numbers, but I still don't like it. But yeah, as a centralized server, they need to do that. So the Signal doesn't really follow the decentralized
it does
idea,
follow privacy and I believe freedom of
tool we have
speech.
today. But the other problem is they're still a centralized entity, so they're prone to attacks from various actors.
And they could be influenced to take something down.
Pressurized. Yeah, it's so they're doing a great job, but it's still not perfect.
So besides Bitcoin, is there anything that like really sticks out to you in this whole system of like something that's decentralized, something that tries to give people power and privacy? And I ask this because I want to learn more about these applications, so I know what to look for and I know what to build.
Yeah, I think like things like Mastodon or Matrix, like things like that are an interesting and worthy attempt at solving certain problems. But again, I'm not a huge fan of the federated model, so I think that we need to do like pure peer-to-peer and maybe delegate some stuff. But yeah, I mean, only time will tell. Maybe they're right, and maybe federated model is the way to go. Other than that, I'm not really sure if there is anything that comes to my mind now.
Well, I have a couple of questions about work and how to maintain a healthy life, seeing that you've been a developer for a while now and you've also been in this space for a while. I think that something that's important for me to talk about is how do you stay consistent when you're building, and what kind of things that you do surround yourself with in life that make this possible to do long term, because it takes a lot of focus and effort and energy and consistency to build anything of value, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I'm not like extremely efficient. I have my lazy days or sometimes even weeks where I get nothing done, but I don't know, I really believe in the necessity to fix free speech online. and that kind of keeps me going. And it's like it's just a project that I could get passionate about, and whenever I can be productive, I don't really have to do anything. I just stay focused on this one thing for now.
Yeah, so it's passion. Like passion is driving you to do this.
Yeah. There's nothing distracting me from it, so it's kind of easy.
I get that. Well, I think I've learned a lot today. I've learned a lot about decentralized networks, peer-to-peer communication, and what makes Bitcoin great. I honestly do believe in this system, and I think it's going to find success long term. And I hope people here maybe get motivated to go and read the white paper and just learn about what you're using and how to keep yourself safe long term. Is there anything that you want to shout out or anything that you want to add in?
No, I think that's it.
Buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin.
This is not financial advice, by the way.
Nope.
Okay, guys. Thank you for listening. This has been Robert, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me.